And it's all about discipline. It's all about consistency, right? The first book is about everything that I learned in basically building a book of business for a school, and I use those same transferable skills in building my own practice, right? So I'll give you one that I'm making up right now. So hi, I'm Dr. Jairo Borja. I help individuals make double-digit returns and or double their money in 5 years backed by real estate. You don't want to deal with the tenants, toilets, and trash. We let you sit back and relax and collect the money while we do all the hard day-to-day hard work. Call me. Boom, done. I just did that on the fly.
Hi, everyone. This is Jack Allwell with another Money episode. Today, we have very special guest, Dr. Jairo Borja. He's the author of Deal Maker: How to Easily Raise Unlimited Capital for Your Deals. Jairo, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thank you for having me here. Look, I have my little belt today. I love
Very
it.
nice. Yeah, before we get into networking, raising capital, I like to ask everyone before we get going, what was your relationship like with money growing up?
It was tough, but you know what? I started working at an early age, so I started to appreciate money at an early age. I started delivering papers like through like the penny saver, so I started doing that, and eventually, when I turned 16, I got my first job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and
Oh,
then after I worked there for a couple of months, and eventually worked at Terrace in the Park in Queens, New York, and the rest is history. So my relationship with money has been, look, my mom has always said, or and dad for that matter, has said, look, you want something, you got to earn it. So I've always been that. Even today, like I give myself a little gifts as far as vacation and all that, and I've earned it. So that's my relationship
mm,
with money. Relationship with money, earning it.
cool. I mean, how involved were like you with did your parents involve you much while you were growing up with like budgeting or anything like that, or was it kind of like taboo? What was your experience?
Not really. Yeah, they didn't have me involved much until like the later years.
Okay.
Once and then I felt like, and I think a lot of us in the Hispanic culture are like this. I think a lot of us are like our translator for my parents at a lot of times. So as I got older, yeah, I became their translator, and then yeah, getting involved in their finances a little bit, and be able to translate, talking to someone on the other side, got to understand like the mortgage, and got to understand
Ah,
budgeting and all that late at a later, like, yeah, I would say like in my teens, right, at that
okay.
point, right, but definitely not early on for sure.
I mean, was that what sparked your interest in real estate?
Not really. What sparked my interest in real estate was once I got married, I got my first primary residence, and then I saw the path to wealth, to building generational wealth, was through real estate. Now, I didn't have the coaching and backing that I have now, or else I probably would have done it a lot sooner. But yeah, that's, they say everything's about timing, right? So I try to buy something in Allentown. I was almost under contract on a deal in Allentown, a three family, but the bank didn't want to approve me because it was too much debt with the home and with my student loan. So they wound up backing out. That This was back in 2016, right when, I think Trump was elected the first time. So there was a lot of uncertainty. So as a result, I didn't want them not getting approved that mortgage. So then after that, fast forward about 7 years later, my partner or ex-partner, friend, or I guess ex-partner or business partner at the time, wanted to getting into multifamily. He wanted to start in their backyard in New York and New Jersey, but the cap rates and the rent just didn't make sense. So we decided to venture out into Tennessee. So in 23, we were going to buy something in Tennessee. We put something under contract. It didn't work. Numbers didn't work out after inspection. The seller didn't want to meet us at the discounted rate that we wanted to, so we walked away from that. And then last year we were going to buy a six family. We were going to use it as a, short term rental, kind of like an Airbnb essentially. And unfortunately, he didn't have the money for the down payment, and then unfortunately, like we were scrambling trying to find the money or raise the capital. I wound up raising the capital. I wound up not doing a deal because afterwards they say everything is about timing, right? Or if
Mhm.
you believe in a higher power, it's like all happenstance or it's God's timing, as they say. And I found some other things additionally in the due diligence that didn't make sense, and then unfortunately, the hurricane hit down there, Hurricane Milton, one of the
Oh,
hurricanes, and which wiped out that area anyway. So it kind of worked out that we didn't do the deal. I lost money on the EMD, but yeah, but it was that's nowhere near the amount of what we would have lost had we gone forward with the deal anyway, right? So that's that, and then eventually found the mastermind, and the rest is history. We'll talk more about that. So
uh-huh.
that's my introduction to real estate.
Okay. So, I mean, your first book was Networking Your Way to Success. It was something with maybe some of those deals falling through, or what was the point where you just had like a moment where like I need to expand my network, and it's maybe not like how question, it's more of like who can help me get to the next level.
Great question. The origin of the first book I had recently, 2019, I had this, I was on several podcasts yesterday. We were talking about this. So 2019 was a very interesting year for me. So I literally January registered the business, right? Borja Consulting Group, January 1 or 2, whatever. March, I got my doctorate. May, I resigned from my job with no plan. I said I was done. And then the summer, I wrote a book, Networking Way to Success. And the reason why I wrote it because I wanted to put myself out there as a thought leader on networking. But on top of that, the second reason is at my job, at my W-2, or at the college I worked at, basically what I did was I used to manage a team, and our job was to find jobs for students and internships for students. And when I first started, I had no book of business. Basically, I had a handful of existing attorneys to work with, but I had nothing else. So I had to start from scratch. So I learned through trials and tribulations, like what works, what didn't work. So the first book is about everything that I learned in basically building a book of business for a school, and I use those same transferable skills in building my own practice, right? So all the tips like using the elevator pitch, the Formea method, the all the frameworks that I've basically learned on the fly, on the job, right? Was able to leverage that now into teaching others how to network in order for them to be in the right rooms to make money. So that's what the first book is about. So
Yeah, I mean yeah, I liked well, and even in Dealmaker you talk a lot about networking and how that helps you raise capital. And one thing, it seems you lean heavily into LinkedIn. Can
I
you
do.
go through I mean I like the strategy of like reaching out, I think it was like four people and then ask them to give you
Yeah.
introductions. Can you go through some of those types of strategies the listeners could implement and maybe some of the success you've had with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great, no, great question. So, in the book deal maker and in my workshops, when I use the way I use LinkedIn is I do a lot of time blocking, and what I'll do is I'll look at your profile, right, Jack? Let's say, and I'll look at I look at your networks, right, your connections to see who's my ideal client, and then what I'll do is I'll ask you in advance, hey Jack, would you mind to make any introductions? You would say yes. And then I have a script that I could send you, or some people just say, hey, you know what, I got it. So then you'll make those four introductions via LinkedIn, via like a group chat on LinkedIn. And that's it. And then I'll just follow up and maybe have one-on-ones with those individuals after that. So now think about that. If I talk to you, if I talk to three other people, let's say in the day, that's 4, 8, 12, 16. That's 16 new names today that I didn't have before, right? So you figure you do that, even a few days a week, that's a good amount of names per week, right? So, but it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of help on the front end in order to do that. So that's the strategy that's helped me grow my business, and I teach others how to do that. And a lot of folks come back to me and say, "Man, Dr. B, that really that's a game changer, right?" And it's all about discipline. It's all about consistency, right? If you take 20 or 30 minutes a day to time block and say, "Okay, I'm gonna look at Jack's connections, I'm gonna look at Carlos's connections, Lewis's connections, and say, all right, let me can he introduce me to that individual, right? So that's a strategy that has worked for me. As and the second tip I'm going to give you guys, a little nugget, is if you join a specific group on LinkedIn, right? So the loophole is on LinkedIn, you have to be connected with them, or of course have a premium subscription. But but if in a group, right, you don't have it's because you're part of the group. technically you could message each other, right? So that's the loophole with LinkedIn as far as groups. So if you're part of the same group, you can message each other, and that's a great way for you to make those connections in certain groups as well. So there you go.
Mhm. Are there any systems you've used to track? Because I always like the quote, whatever gets measured gets managed. Is there
Yeah.
a way you actually, I mean, I know you mentioned CRM. Can you, or any
Stock
tools you
control,
want
yeah.
to like, yeah.
Yeah. I use HubSpot for a lot of that stuff, but I'm pivoting into Go High Level to the point where I'm looking to automate a lot of that. I was using like Octopus and I was using Expandy for a lot of these campaigns, but what happens is a lot of those tools get flagged, and I've been on timeout by LinkedIn, unfortunately. But I'm good. I'm in good standing now. I'm not on timeout. But right now I'm using HubSpot in order to keep following up with those individuals, and I know to those metrics as far as who's open, not open, and all that. So now I'm pivoting into Go High Level, and the reason why is I want to, right now I have Kajabi here, I have Calendly here, I have this here. I'm looking to centralize all my tools in one place. So that's the reason why I'm making that pivot. I'm in the middle of that. It'll take a few weeks, but my long term vision is to have everything under one mother
Hmm.
ship or umbrella. So
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah. So I use that. So
And it also seems like you meet a lot of your contacts through like seminars, workshops, masterminds. Can you talk about any tactics, or if
yeah,
someone's
yeah.
never done any of them, what should they look for? What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's say someone like cold or has never done anything like that. So a tip I would provide is know the type of event you're at, right? So if it's a panel, it's one thing. If it's a gala, it's another thing, right? Because it's a different way of networking, right? In the sense that if you're at a gala, you're not going to meet 40, 50 people, maybe the cocktail hour, but afterwards, you're just going to sit down with the 10, 12 people at a table, right? So it's more intimate, more casual. But if it's a traditional networking event, you have to make sure you have your elevator pitch tight, and then make sure like a lot of folks get stuck in what do I say in 5 minutes. I talk about in both books. I talk about the Formea method, right, or form method. I just added two acronyms, at the two letters at the end. So family, right, finding that common ground as far as siblings or kids or marital status, right. Occupation could be we could be in the same industry or similar industries, right? Recreation, we could have some of the same hobbies, right? As I'm a pro wrestling aficionado. If you are as well, that's a great, conversation starter, right? Motivation, a little bit tricky. It's like understanding their purpose or why. Right? My why may be different from yours, but it's good to talk about that. Education could be, yeah, it could be the same degree or same school or similar schools, right? And an achievement could be like I recently opened a business or reached a certain milestone. So those are all great things to talk about as well, right? So with that being said, along with the elevator pitch, so there's different versions of it. I could send you what I've coached folks that have won award-winning like pitch competitions. So I'll give you one that I'm making up right now. So hi, I'm Dr. Jairo Borja, and um, I help individuals make double-digit returns and or double their money in 5 years, backed by real estate. We have a syndication for syndication model for several deals that are going on now in Cincinnati. You don't want to deal with the tenants, toilets, and trash. We let you sit back and relax and collect the money while we do all the hard day-to-day hard work. Why us? Because I work with Mike Ely. He's been in the business for over 25 years, owns 4 hotels and 1,800 units. And I myself am not no spring chicken. I own 100 myself, and have been a business owner for 6 years, and have quite a bit of a reputation. And if you're looking to connect to learn more, please call me. Boom, done. I just did that on the fly, right? So basically, just having the right elevator pitch and the right call to action, whether it's a call, cup of coffee, and I would say keep it concise. Keep it to like 5 minutes max. Especially if you want to maximize and work the room for an event, I want to say if make it a goal. I want to connect with 10 people, 15 people. So you want to be able to work the room and not spend too much time with someone. So there you go.
Mhm. And I know you had this term in the book. You used strategic alliances. Can you talk through, help the listeners kind of understand what a strategic alliance actually is and how you can think about that in your own business or life?
Yeah, no, 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 yeah, yeah. So as an example, as a motion thing is there. examples of different strategic alliances is if I'm a financial advisor, as an example, connecting with a CPA, right? And that CPA, prepares taxes and it does a lot of tax strategy, right? So with that being said, working with someone like that who could feed you different clientele and vice versa. Maybe you could say, hey, look, I did this insurance for this guy. This guy, got an IRA for this guy, but at the same time, I think he needs more. Let's work together to kind of make sure that we help him from a tax standpoint. Like, what can he do to, whether it's whole life or whatever it is, IUL, whatever it is, in order to help that individual, right? That's what I mean. That's what a strategic alliance is, like being able to work with other businesses that complement yours, right? So in my case, as you know, I'm also a business coach, right? So being able to connect with other business coaches in other areas, like I don't do HR, but maybe that could be an area where, where someone could, feed people to me and say, hey, look, this person, I helped them with their SOPs, helped them with their information, but they really need help with the setting up processes, setting up their networking strategy, setting up their funnels. Can you help? So that's what I mean by strategic alliances, and it's very important, especially in raising capital, to connect with that power team, right? Connecting with the GC, connecting with the title, connecting with other investors, because that's the only way you're gonna raise capital. You're gonna leverage those relationships in order to make you succeed.
Mhm.
So,
For people that are interested in raising capital, you had a section on unused sources of capital. Can you talk through like maybe we are even sitting on unused sources of capital and we don't even know it. Can you walk
right.
through some of those sources?
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, no, no, thank you for that. A lot of folks, believe it or not, it's a $1 trillion, uh, not problem, challenge or issue, right? Where a lot of folks have moved jobs, but for some reason have not rolled over their 401k. So what you could do in theory is you could roll that into if you have your own business, a solo, you could roll it into a self-directed IRA. And with the self-directed IRA, you could invest in a couple of things, crypto and all that, but specifically in my case, I say real estate, right? Because what you could do is you could invest in a deal, and then you could get paid back the principal and interest, and it'll grow a lot quicker and faster without all those fees, as if you would have left it in the market, right? So that's that. There's also cash value life insurance. So a lot of times, whether you if you don't, what is it, 1035 it into a new deal, or maybe you had just, maybe for whatever reason, you just sitting there or haven't paid it, or maybe you want to tap into that. I know historically in the past, I'm a big firm believer of it. One of my first policies was a whole life policy, and it accrued up to like $10,000, and thanks to that money, eventually I 1035 it into something. But that initial 10K, I used it for furniture for my first home. so
Uh-huh.
so with that being said, recently I was overpaying, I was overinsuring my daughter, so I closed one of my policies. So I had I almost 4 grand that I just took out, right? I just got in my account the other day. So basically, those are other examples of, like, let's say, in real estate, you could kind of do that. You could kind of take advantage of cash value life insurance and invest it in a deal, right? Also, there's your home, right? Which it all depends, right? For some folks, it's flexible to tap into your equity, and others is not, right? So that could be another way to tap into your equity in order to invest in another property and or invest in a syndication deal, right? So I talk about all that, and then from a small business standpoint, especially like for those that are fans of like Cody Sanchez and folks like that, um, there's the SBA. There's a lot of great programs for microloans or community advantage or 504s that, in theory, you could raise the money, right, for the down payment, right, or seller finance it, and then eventually take it at SBA and pay back your investor, and then have the leftover in equity, right? So there's a lot of different cool strategies behind that. So I talk about that in the book as well. So.
Mhm. Can you give the listeners a flavor for what type of deals you're working on right now?
I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. So right now, we're working on a portfolio deal in Cincinnati. It's a 296 units and a 161 unit in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's 50% occupied. So there is some work that has to be done there, but the goal is to acquire it. I think in the next month and a half. So we're looking to raise 1.5 million at the moment, It's a non-accredited deal, so both non-accredited and accredited could invest in the deal. And the goal, the business plan, is to get it to be occupied, 90+% in the 90% percentile, and to also increase the value through the common areas and fixing the appliances and everything in every unit. And then the goal is to refi, similar to a syndication model, in 2 years, pay back the investors their principal plus some of their interest. They'll get their quarterly payments, and at the end, also get paid on the sale. And in addition to that, we're applying to like specific like zoning grants as well. And if we get those grants, it'll even sweeten the deal even more. So that's what we're working on at the moment, and I'm helping raise uh, as well for a deal in Petersburg, Virginia. I think that's like a 60 unit. It's like a mixed use property where the bottom is like a banquet hall of some kind, and the top is the apartments. And it's a very cool area or up and coming area. So, and I think that one is for non-accredited and accredited as well. So I'm just looking to raise capital for those deals. So I've been doing dinners and meetups, and I was on the phone for like an hour yesterday. It was a webinar last night. So yeah, that's what we're working on.
Cool. Yeah, I was about to ask, how are you going about raising or like networking for that? And then what's like the minimum investment for something like one of those deals?
Yeah, so right now we do a mix of investor dinners. We do a lot of investor meetups. We do a lot of webinars. We do a lot of just outreach. That has worked for me. I also recently, thanks to like our connection and through Podmatch, connected with a couple of RIAs, registered investment advisors, and connected them with them. So because they manage the money, a lot of money. So I'm trying to be strategic as far as who I connect with, and that's what's been working for me, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
But the minimum investment for those deals is 25K. Yeah, so if anyone is interested, let me know.
cool. Yeah, I won't give away too much of the book, but there was a part I think where you had one seminar and you raised 250K just
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
one
yeah.
seminar. So yeah, so
Yes.
this is definitely working for you.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, so as we're winding down, I do like to ask everyone, what's the best and worst personal finance advice you've heard or received?
The best advice that I gotten is definitely like building generational wealth and diversifying your portfolio, and not just in real estate, but you could have money parked in the market or in different instruments. It's just diversification. That's the best advice. And the worst advice I received, there was a lot of them, but I don't want to put anyone on blast, but I'm trying to think. I think putting all your eggs in like crypto.
Okay.
Not to disrespect crypto. I think it's a good vehicle, but not. I wouldn't put all my eggs in it. Put it
Uh-huh. Okay.
that way. It's so volatile. I think I was a sucker for Dogecoin, and I'm still waiting for that thing to bounce up, and it hasn't bounced.
Dr. Jairo Borja, thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can go get your books or learn about your services or get in touch with you?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. I had a fantastic time on your podcast. I would say for those interested in working with me directly or to purchase the book Dealmaker, you could go to borjacapital.com or borjaconsultinggroup.com or amazon.com and Dealmaker, how to raise unlimited capital for your deals. And I'm very active on LinkedIn at Dr. Jairo Borja. So that's about it. And yep, looking forward to hearing from each one of you.
Cool. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Take care.